I think I'm ready. Am I good?
Yeah, whatever you want. I'm going to have another drink. You go ahead and start whatever you want. This is Task Time Energy, the purpose-filled productivity podcast. I'm your host, Scott Miller. Welcome to the show. Welcome, everyone. Lauren Foster Lee is our guest today. Lauren is an actor, vocalist, and improviser who was living here in Durham, North Carolina until she recently moved to New York City. She studied at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, where she received a Bachelor of Arts in Theater with a minor in vocal performance. Lauren is a classically trained lyrical soprano and has performed with several choirs in North Carolina. Some of her recent acting credits include Single Black Female with Bulldog Ensemble Theater, The Garbologists with Bulldog Ensemble Theater, Piece of Clay with Theater Raleigh, and Citizen with Duke University. Lauren currently serves on the stakeholder board of Meddlesome, a theater here in Durham. Prior to relocating to New York, she taught and performed with Meddlesome's Golden Age and well-seasoned improv groups. Well, Lauren, I'm very grateful to have you here today. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me.
So to give people a little bit of background, a few months ago, some friends of mine and I decided that we were going to take an improv class, more officially known as improvisational theater. And we went to a theater called Meddlesome here in Durham and signed up for an Improv 101 class. And the teacher was Lauren. And it was super fun. We really learned a lot doing that class. It was really fun. But also, Lauren had the chance to watch you perform in a play. And that was what inspired me to invite you to come on the podcast and talk about some of your experiences. I think it would be interesting for people to hear about that. I'm curious first, though, how did you get interested in acting?
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Well, I think I was kind of always into performing around the house, but maybe when I was 10, my dad decided he needed new extracurriculars. And so he went and auditioned for a local community theater play. And I went with him just to kind of tag along. And the director decided just to humor me and ended up casting me in the play, which was really nice. It was so much fun. And I got to do my first play with my dad. And I think it just kind of stuck. And I would continue to do shows all throughout school. And then I got really serious about it my senior year of high school when I was like, I'm going to go to school for this. And my parents were like, hold up. But, that's what happened.
That's great. And what about improv? How did you get interested specifically in improv?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So this is a scam. I feel like I got into improv through a scam. So Man Bites Dog Theater, when they were in existence, they used to do this citywide audition where all of these companies would come in and actors could audition for multiple companies at once. And so I want to say it was 2017. I went to the audition, and one of the companies that called me back was Meddlesome. And Jack, who is one of the stakeholders and founders, he sent me an email and he's like, hey, we're starting this improv team. We think that you would be really great. Are you interested? Would you like to take an improv class? And I was like, absolutely not. You have the wrong person. I don't do improv. I'm an actor. I do musical theater and plays, and my plays tend to be dramatic. So I was like, no, I don't think this is for me. So then they responded again, and they were like, well, just come to the class, come for the first week. And if you like it, stay. If you don't, you can leave. And I ended up coming to the class. I liked it. I stayed. And then they just kind of kept pulling me in. And then, it just happened.
Okay, I'm loving these stories. I love how you got involved in acting by being in a play with your dad and got involved in improv through this whole getting sucked in by Meddlesome. What about teaching? What about teaching? Is that something that you did separately, or is that an offshoot of your acting and improv work?
I think it's an offshoot of my acting and improv work, but the improv teaching in particular, it really happened. I kind of thrown into a lot of things, right? Like it's just like the story of my life. But yeah, like I had been doing improv and I was like co-coaching Improv Noir, which is an old iteration of Well Seasoned, one of the current house teams. It's like early iterations of that team. And Ashley, one of the stakeholders and founders, she was like, Lauren, I think you could teach a 101 class. And they had me shadow a 101 and the rest is that.
That's awesome. Well, okay, I'm gonna share a little bit of the story of a little more of the story of what inspired me to ask you to be on the podcast. So while you were teaching our 101 class, you were also appearing in a play called Single Black Female.
Yeah.
And I remember one day, it was at the end of class, and some of us were going to go see the play that weekend. And you had mentioned that, you know, you were going to be in the play and we were going to stick around for an improv show after with a group called Golden Age that you normally perform with. And you had said, oh, you know, I'm not going to be performing with Golden Age that night because I need a break or I'm going to be tired or something along those lines. And I remember thinking, well, that makes sense. Like, sounds like you're making reasonable decisions because you were also at the time getting ready to move to New York where you are currently.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, this makes sense. You know, it sounds like you have a lot going on. So my wife, Lauren, and I went and saw you perform in Single Black Female. And I was so impressed with that show and all the energy that you and Kima Lassiter put into it because the whole show is just the two of you.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're sitting down the whole time having a conversation at a table. You're up, you're moving around. There are a couple dance scenes. And it's the two of you talking back and forth the whole time. And it's a lot of it's just really high energy conversation. And I was just so impressed with the amount of energy that it seems like it takes to perform a show like that. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, like I would want to just go home and go to bed after that. I couldn't imagine like performing in another show. So yeah. I'd just love to hear a little more about that, like from your side, from your experience. Does it feel to you when you're performing a show like that, that it takes a lot of energy, or is it just easy for you?
It definitely takes a lot of energy. It takes so much energy. I feel like 2-person shows, I would say, probably take even more energy, right? Just because like I have to be on and I have to there are moments where I might be low and my scene partner has to pull me up, and then moments where she might be low and I have to pull her up. And it's just like so many moving parts. And then the play is also a fast moving play. It just required so much from me. And I feel like I learned through experience. There have been times before where I would do a show and then go and do an improv show or go do a reading. And I'd be doing like 3 things in a day and I was exhausted. And I'm like, I have to start making sure that I'm resting and not being burnt out, because I love these things. I love what I'm doing, but I don't want to end up burnt out because I am overspending the energy that I have. So, yeah.
This makes me think of some other conversations I've had with people on the show who are accomplishing a lot in their life and doing a lot of different things. And some people say that it's been hard for them to learn to do that, to learn to like really take care of themselves and say no to things. Some people seem to have an easier time with that than others. Is that something that's been hard for you, been easy for you? How would you describe yourself in that area?
I'd say it'd be really hard because my FOMO is real. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm missing out on so much. Like, especially like leading up to leaving, like there was just so much going on. Also, I was taking care of my mom during that time as well. Like I just had a lot happening. And I was like, I'm leaving. I want to play with these people. I miss them. But like, I just knew that I couldn't. And so like I was just like, I gotta make sure which thing requires the most of my energy right now, and of course it was the show. So
how long does the show last? I'm trying to remember.
I want to say that it was about 90 minutes. It was like 85 to 90 minutes.
And it really is the two of you on stage the entire time. I mean, I remember maybe there were short periods where it was just one of you speaking or the other, but it really is like 85, 90 minutes of just going and talking and performing. And you also said that you had a pretty short time to prepare for that, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. So the play that we were originally going to do, we ended up not being able to do it. So some of the actors had some things happening and they had to pull out at the last minute and they weren't able to recast. And so it was so funny because like I got a text message saying that the show wasn't going to happen. And then an hour later, it was like, hey, we're going to make this happen and we're going to do this. Do you still want to do it? And I was like, I love the director, Jamaica Holloway. I love her. I have so much respect for her. And I was like, if it wasn't Jamaica and Kima Lassiter, I don't know if I could do this, but I will definitely do it for them because like, I know their work ethic. I know like that it's just going to be a good time. Like, cause sometimes some rehearsals can be stressful, depending on the people that you're working with, you know? But I just knew that like, it would be a good time and we would be able to support one another. And so it was, I think maybe we had 3 weeks of rehearsal. 3 weeks. And it's not irregular to have 3 weeks of rehearsal. It is irregular though, when you don't have the script beforehand. So on our first day of rehearsal is when we had the script. So most of the time, like you'll have 4 to 4 weeks. I think the shortest rehearsal period I had was 10 days, but I had the script several months in advance. But yeah, so I think that was hard because it was like, not only am I having to learn my lines, I'm also having to come up with my characterization, bring some things to the table so that like the director can be like, no, I don't like it, or let's try here. So it was just so much that was happening on top of teaching a class that it's already been on the books for me to teach this class. And then on top of taking care of my mom, who ended up having to have like a corrective surgery, and like it was just a lot happening. So yeah.
One thing we talk about a lot on this show is prioritization, and how when you have a lot to do or when there are a lot of things that you feel you need to do, the ability to prioritize becomes important. And to be able to say certain things, like it was fun. I was talking to someone recently who said that even more important than their to-do list is their not to-do list, right?
That's so true.
Isn't that great? Like
Yeah.
they'll specifically make a list or look at their to-do list and say, okay, these things are going on the not to-do list. Like I want to make sure I don't spend time on those things because I don't have the time to spend.
Right.
I'm wondering if when you have like a relatively short time to prepare for a play, is there any kind of intentional prioritizing that you do to be able to like choose what's important that you need to focus on the most?
Yeah, I'm a list maker, so I write down a lot of lists, and I'm like, okay, so if this is if my next month is going to be full of this show, like, what do I have to do? Like, I know I have to work. I know I have to eat. I have to do these things, right? Well, what do I not have to do? So I do from there, I'll go through and like carve out what can take a backseat. And sad to say, sometimes the improv takes a backseat because it's such a consistent part, or it has been such a consistent part of my life that like it's cool to take a backseat for a month and then come back. And the people that I played with, they're like, oh, Lauren's doing a show and then she'll be back, because like I needed the break. But yeah, I think with my list is what I do. And then I factor in like when I'm gonna sleep. So like after I write out everything, I'm like, okay, so I need to know that this day is a day that I'm not gonna do anything because I need to sleep, or I just want to be in my house and like watch TV or whatever the case is. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've heard that from other people too, saying they're really intentional about the days off, about the downtime, and that's a really key part of what they do. You mentioned making lists. I'm just wondering, like, what kind of systems do you use that you find really helpful, or what's your preferred way of organizing your to-dos, your tasks, and your time?
This is going to sound real old-fashioned, but pencil and paper. I do pencil and paper. And then, like, once I've got it down and I feel really good about it, I transfer it into, like, my old school planner. Like, I buy one at the start of the year. And then like the days that have like important days, like that have like a lot going on, I'll put it on like the main calendar. Like I have like 3 different calendars, and then I'll take the time and put it in my Google Calendar. But yeah, I'm very old fashioned.
So for our listeners who can't see me right now, I'm giving Lauren big thumbs up here with the paper and pencil.
Yeah.
I mean, I always talk about that. Like if you're going to use an app or something like that or something electronic, I think it's really important to compare it to how we would do this by paper and pencil and say, is it really worth doing this in an app, or would it actually be easier, more effective, more efficient for me to just do this with pencil? Is there actually an advantage to doing this electronically? And sometimes there's not. Sometimes paper and
Right.
pencil is just the best way to do it, or the best way that works for any given person, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. And then like a lot of times I just feel like I look at screens too much. Like everything is screen based, even down to like the watches and stuff, you know? So it's like anytime I can get away from a screen is a good time for me.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of the paper and pencil method
Yeah.
when applicable.
Yeah.
It's interesting that all of the different things that you were doing at once, like I knew you were getting ready to move, I knew you were teaching and you know, performing, and didn't know you were taking care of your mom, but yeah, that's a lot all at once.
Yeah.
And what I found really interesting, you know, my wife's a teacher. I've been teaching for years and years and years. We always talk about our teacher voice, right? Like when we get in class, you know, you have that way of speaking that's a little different from the way you normally talk. I probably have my podcaster voice too. You know, this is.
It does sound different from you in class.
There you have it, folks. Firsthand testimony that I do have a podcaster voice. So I noticed that as a teacher, you're very high energy, you're very encouraging. You're always like, yeah, that was great. And here's a suggestion, you know, which is really great when you're dealing with a bunch of people who are taking an Improv 101 class and nervous about being up and performing in front of other people. And I don't know how to do this. And wait, like, oh, we actually have to think about this. This isn't just going up and doing whatever you want. So I really admired and respected your just very high energy and encouraging way and supportive way of teaching.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. And so I'm just wondering, is there anything special other than like scheduling those days off to take care of yourself and just have that downtime? Is there anything else that you do to keep your energy level where you want it?
Yeah, so I know that like most people don't believe me when I say it, but I'm definitely an introvert. So I take some time to like make sure that I go for walks or I read or I do whatever so that way like I can like feel restored. And then if it's like if I'm going into something that I know requires high energy and like for a 101 class, I just believe in high energy in that space just because like you said, it's something that's so new for many people. And like I have been in like intro acting classes where like sometimes you get hit with like so many rules in the beginning. And then the teacher is also like very dogmatic and also wants to get these things out that it's just like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm feeling. I don't even know. And I'm like, you know what? These people are not in school for this. This is, you know, they are taking a chance on themselves. Let's come with energy. So I feel like in those cases, like a lot of times, like before I teach, because that class requires energy, I like listen to like really high energy music. I drink coffee like all day. So it's not like it really affects it doesn't really affect me, but like coffee centers me. So I'll have my cup of coffee or whatever. And like, yeah, so like that's just kind of like what I do to like get ready to just be on, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So.
For our listeners who can't see what I'm doing, I gave Lauren a big thumbs up too when she said drink coffee all day.
Yeah.
Also a big fan of that. No, actually I try to like cut my coffee off at 3:00 in the afternoon.
Oh no.
I could totally drink coffee all day up until I fall asleep, but then I probably wouldn't fall asleep. So I've kind of learned I gotta cut myself off some way, at some point.
Gosh, I go for my second cup of coffee or my third cup sometimes at 3:30.
It's funny that you talk about being an introvert because I tell people the same thing, that I'm totally an introvert, and people say, but you talk to people all the time, like you're a coach and a teacher and like you give presentations in front of a bunch of people. It's interesting. I think maybe people are more aware of this now, but like the definition, I mean, different definitions of introvert, right? But a common one that's used is simply how do you get your energy? So an extrovert would be someone where if they're spending too much time alone, they're going to feel kind of drained and they would want to be around other people to lift their energy up. Whereas an introvert, like someone like me, and it sounds like someone like you, if we're spending a lot of time around other people, we're going to want some time alone.
Yeah.
Just, it's not that we don't enjoy being around other people. It's not that we can't teach and, do things that are interacting with other people, that involve interacting with other people, but it's needing that downtime to recharge your batteries, to feel recharged.
Yeah, for sure. It makes me think about like sometimes when I go on vacations with friends, right? So like my family knows that like, oh, Lauren's going to go away for a little bit and refilter and then she's coming back. But like when I go away with friends, I remember like the very first time I took a trip with a group of like my college friends, and they were like, Lauren, you just went away. You went to the room. Like, was something wrong? And I'm like, no, I needed a nap. I just needed to read. I just needed to sit by myself. And so like now, like we still like normally we go on trips like once a year. And now they're like, oh, make sure Lauren has gotten away. Has she gotten away yet? So like, yeah, it's really funny.
Well, yeah, I think that's important to recognize that about ourselves, right? Because it is easy to think, if we're not aware of that, it's easy to think, oh, something's wrong, or other people will say, oh, is something wrong?
Sure.
And it's not that anything's wrong. It's just this is something that some people need, probably about half the population, right? It's probably about half and half.
Yeah.
But something that people need in order to just need a little bit of time alone in order to feel recharged and feel so that we can go back and hang around people and have fun being around people, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It seems like acting is a situation where it becomes so important to manage energy, right? Like you mentioned, when you're acting with someone and sometimes they're going to be down and you need to pick them up a little bit, and sometimes vice versa. Are there any tools or tips or techniques that you think other people would find useful that, specifically come from the acting world that involve like being able to manage your energy and have the energy that you need to be effective in a certain situation, like when you're getting ready to go out on stage? You mentioned like listening to music. Is there anything else that you know of or that would be helpful?
That's a good question. Let me think. I don't want to sound super heady, but like sometimes being aware of your body and like the certain triggers in your body that you get when your energy is low, and like sometimes not just the whole, like my eye is twitching or, like I'm getting a Charlie horse, not that, but like just really like just kind of feeling like what your body does when your body's tired. I think sometimes as actors, we are like just trained to be aware of our body in any given moment. Like I recognize my nervous twitches are like, I play with hair and things like that. But I know that like when I'm tired, like the way that my body just feels like super lethargic, the way that my shoulders fall, and then it's like, oh, I have to remind myself to perk up. So then it's like, oh, I need to rest, or my voice is feeling my voice is getting raspy. I'm actually thirsty, even if I'm not thinking that I'm thirsty. You know what I mean? So I wonder if it and I don't know how to teach someone who has not necessarily been paying attention to their body like that. I'm not sure how to teach them of how to be mindful of it, but I think that that's something.
That makes total sense. Yeah. Thinking of two things. One is a conversation I had with someone on this podcast who's a sleep researcher.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things I found really interesting about, doing a little homework, preparing for that episode, and also talking to her was the like unexpected consequences of having poor sleep or of not getting enough sleep. Like we would normally think, oh, I'm just going to feel a little tired and, I'll just drink an extra cup of coffee and power through it. But there are a lot of effects that we'll feel when we haven't had enough sleep or when we haven't had enough quality sleep that are not ones you'd expect.
Yeah.
And it's so that to me connects really well with what you were saying about just being aware of your body and maybe being aware of changes in your body, how your body feels, or nervous habits, or just your shoulders dropping, things that would indicate that maybe you're tired, or maybe you need a break, or maybe, that you're running out of energy that a lot of people wouldn't be aware of. And again, the second thing being, it makes sense that as an actor, you would have that awareness, or somebody who's been trained as an actor would be more aware of their body. I was just thinking about doing improv, and sometimes I'd realize, like, I have no idea what to do with my hands right now,
Yeah.
right? Like, I'm just standing there holding my
Right.
hands kind of awkwardly and going, oh, that doesn't seem normal. Like, let me do something else with my hands. Or there's this tendency to just like stand there and talk. And I'm thinking, well, maybe I should move. You even said, I think in class, like, go ahead and move around a little. Or some of the lessons were about like how we move our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even if somebody's not going to take an acting class or become an experienced actor, maybe things like, well, like I found yoga made me.
Yeah.
Have you done yoga before?
Yes, I have. And in fact, what's so crazy, like one of my movement teachers back in school, like she would have us do yoga in class. So yeah, I've done yoga off and on for years now.
Because for me, one of the benefits of yoga was being more aware of my body, like being more aware of when I'm standing straight or sitting straight, being more aware of how I'm moving or how my body feels. So yeah, opportunities like that to become more aware of that seem like they would be useful just in what we're talking about, so that we notice when our body is not normal, like when you're suffering from low energy, and that's manifesting itself in your body. That makes total sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think sometimes too it's like even recognizing like what stress looks like for you. Like I know for me, like I can tell when I start getting stressed when I start to curse a lot. Like I curse casually, but like I'm not like a heavy cursor, but like when every other word is a curse word, like most of the time I'm like, hey, I think I might be stressed out. Like, what is this? This isn't normal for me, So it's like just figuring out what that is,
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense too. Yeah. So just, while we have you here, there's so many things I'd like to ask you about. One of them is, like, this is all great. This is all, this all fits in perfectly with what I love to talk about on this show.
Okay. I'm glad. I'm like, oh man.
Including the whole cursing thing. Yeah, that's perfect.
Right. Whatever is your thing.
So like one of the things I've thought about doing on this show is, like, I was thinking of my dentist, right? And this dentist I go to, and how smoothly the office runs. They've got people coming in and out all day with different lengths of appointments. And, the dentist is coming in and talking to one person, then leaving the room and working with another person. And like some of these doctors' offices, and maybe not everybody's, maybe some of us have had bad experiences having to wait or being forgotten about. But some doctors' offices I've been to, just it's amazing to see how they make everything work together so smoothly and efficiently. There's an element of time management to that really impresses me. And I'm wondering, with a play or some type of performance where there's so many things that have to happen in the right order or at the right time, is that ever something that you've noticed? Have you ever just stepped back and said, wow, this is really cool that we make all this actually work the way it's supposed to work?
Yeah. Especially when things are going really smoothly. When they're going well, it's like, oh, wow, look at this machine go. So for sure.
Yeah, like how does that happen? Or is there anything like that comes to mind that like something interesting about the way things are done in theater that help all these moving pieces come together in the way that they need to?
I think when I've seen it done best or even been a part of it, it's when everyone is very aware of what their role is and don't really step outside of that, right? Like I think one thing that is interesting about the industry really of theater is that many people come and because of their experiences have like several different things that they're good at. You might be an actor that's also a director, or a stage manager that's also a lighting designer, or whatever the case may be. And sometimes people are made to wear multiple hats just because of the nature of a budget or something like that. But like when everyone knows that this is the hat that I'm wearing and they're operating in that capacity, and it's like, even if I am a director and I have an idea of what something should be, if that's not what I'm supposed to be doing, then let me stay here. So I've noticed that in theater, it really works best when people remain in the lanes that they're supposed to be in for what they were contracted for. if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Yeah, that's hard for me sometimes.
Yeah, it's hard, right? It's like trusting everyone around you that like, can this happen? And it can't, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's been a big lesson for me is because I do tend to get a lot of ideas, and I'm kind of like, I've done a lot of different things in my life, had different jobs, different things that I've tried and learned how to do. And I like helping people, right? So it's easier for me to want to jump in and help and say, oh yeah, hey, let me make a suggestion, or, oh, I can help with that. And that's not always what's best on a team. It's not always what other people want. And you mentioned trusting other people to do their job. And I think that's been an important lesson for me is learning to trust other people, even if they're going to do something differently from the way I would do it. It's not necessarily that there's anything wrong with that. And it may, if I just sit back and watch what they do, may even be better.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so hard because it always comes from a good place. It's like, there's a need here. Let me get in and fulfill the need. But it's like, hey, if I just trust it, or if they need help, they're going to say it. And then, we'll be able to do it. I think there's this one actor that I've worked with often, and like she has all of this amazing experience. And what's always so funny is that if she sees something that needs to be done, like she will verbally check herself and be like, that's not what I'm supposed to be doing right now. And she goes back to her thing. And it's just so beautiful to see like this like verbal check. And I've noticed it just because I'm a people watcher. And I'll be like, you do what you have to do to remind yourself. It's just a beautiful thing.
Well, I can see how that would help in terms of what we're talking about, in terms of helping things stay on schedule in two ways, because when we're focusing on what we're supposed to be doing, we're going to do that better, right? There's an aspect of mindfulness to that, right? Just being aware and focusing your attention on what it is that you're doing right now, not worrying about other people, like just trusting other people to do their thing and keeping our focus and our attention on our thing. But also the fact that when you have multiple people getting involved in something, there's always going to be some discussion and communication and need to get in alignment. And that does slow things down sometimes, where it's more efficient to say, this person has that piece, that person has that piece. Let's let everybody do their job. And then we're all working together in parallel instead of, having to.
Yeah, definitely. And I know with single Black female in particular, like just because the process was so quick, like I was having to learn lines at the same time as like trying to, do work and discover. There were times where I would think to myself, oh, it would be good if I could jump in and do this. But I can't, because if I jump in and do, then this is going to, like, my part is going to fall behind. So I'm going to have to do what I have to do so that this part of the show doesn't fall behind, So it's hard, but like just reminding myself that my energy is for this, it's not for that,
Yeah, I think that's another important point, because I think we've all seen that happen and maybe even been guilty of it ourselves, where we want to help other people. And yet in doing so, we let our own piece fall behind, right? Which is not ideal.
Yes, I've totally done that before.
Well, here's a juicy topic, maybe a tough topic for some people, but perfection.
Ooh.
Some people find themselves to be more of a perfectionist than others, and maybe struggle with this more than others. And I'm just thinking in terms of preparing for a play and rehearsing and even like putting the play on. How much of a struggle is it for you to want everything to be perfect versus recognizing that, hey, we just have to, we only have so much time to prepare, and we're just going to have to go out and do it, and just be our best? Is there any kind of a conflict there? Is there anything you ever struggle with?
Oh my God, all the time. It is a huge thing. Like it's so huge. I feel like, how many shows does single Black female have? I can't even remember. 8? I don't know. But like, I feel like of the shows, there were probably like 2 where I walked off and I was like, this was great. Like there's always something that I was like, oh, this needed to be better, or I was late here, or I got stuck up here, or whatever. So I think I struggle with it because it's like, I will, like, in my mind, like I know that everything is not going to always be perfect and you just have to work with what you're given with. But then it's also like, I'm conflicted because I want it to be good. And then sometimes the insecurities come through and it's like, well, what if I'm just not good enough? What if I just need to go back to only doing HR and maybe some improv here and there? You know what I mean? Like, so it's just like so much that I'm dealing with. And so I think what I try to do is like, I try to like after, because I like if I have the feeling, I just gotta like get through it, because sometimes I've tried to be like, no, this doesn't exist, but it does exist. Like I like will leave the stage and be like, I messed up that line, or there was dead space that shouldn't have been dead space, and did we feel it, and did people pick up on it, you know? So like just recognizing that like I have that moment, and after I have that moment, I kind of like just give myself a moment where if it's either in my car or if I'm like going out or whatever, where it's like, okay, we're going to let that live where it is. And tomorrow's a better night. Or even if it happens on the last night, it's okay, because people enjoyed themselves and people got what they needed to get from it, or whatever the case is. So like, I let myself feel the craziness and then remind myself this is not that crazy.
Well, yeah, that's interesting, a way to approach it. The idea of just accepting that it's going to happen, this desire for perfection and this, we're our own worst critics, right? That like that's going to happen. It's normal. And to allow that to just be and yeah, just let it be there.
Yeah.
And also probably, I imagine that there's probably an aspect of recognizing that most of the time the audience will not notice any of these things that you're noticing. And everybody's just like, wow, that was so great.
Yeah.
and they mean it, right? Like, when people come up to you after playing and go, wow, that was so great. Like they mean it. They had a great time, right?
Yeah, they do. And they mean it. And it's like, oh, I'm so glad that was great for you, because I'm dying on the inside.
Well, yeah. And like, I mean, this is such an important lesson. This is a conversation we've had with a number of people, right? About this desire for perfection and how it can get in the way of actually just moving forward and doing our best, right? Because doing our best doesn't always mean 100% everything perfect the way we would want it to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, Lauren, this has been great. I'm so glad that you came on the show and agreed to talk to us. I have a question that I ask people at the end of every episode, which I would like to ask you right now.
Okay.
What is your dream right now?
My dream right now. Okay, so I have like two. Like I have one that is like very like related to the now, and then I have like just like my dream, So, okay, my dream now is, I'm learning about New York. I've been here for 8 weeks now. Ooh. And so I just want to I didn't realize that this was a thing, but I want an apartment that has a washer and dryer. That is my dream. It's so basic right now, but apparently a washer and dryer is a high commodity here. And I put in what I wanted to pay based off of what I can afford. And some apartments popped up that were nice. And then I put the filter in there that was washer and dryer. And my selection dropped down to one. So I'm learning that that's a thing. So I just would love that. That is my the now thing. I don't know if that really is a dream versus a desire. But then my dream is that I want to come back to Durham and be an actor that's based in Durham with chickens in my house. I just want chickens. I want chickens. I want to be back in Durham, I don't know, in a few years or so, and I just want my career to have gotten to a place to where I don't have to have multiple jobs to make ends meet, and I am just based in North Carolina. I might be gone for a few months and then I'll come back home to my chickens and just call it a day.
That's like, I'm just thinking this is like the most Durham thing ever, because I'm thinking of Meddlesome, right? Like we're in the parking lot of this like kind of sophisticated little, area, like building area collection of shops where there's like this hip little like bar and brewery, and you got the hip little pizza joint around the corner, and the little ice cream shop, and the Improv theater, right?
Yeah.
And then across the street, somebody's got goats, and like so we're standing in the parking lot, and you hear the goats, and that's like, that's Durham.
Yeah, so, I think you leave Durham and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, that's home. I guess it's not like a dream. But,
it is though, right? Like, like washing machine. I can remember sitting in laundromats and like sitting there for a couple hours and like, okay, so you read a book or something. But yeah, it's the washer and dryer thing makes sense. The chickens make sense. I totally get it. That's a great dream. All right, Lauren, thank you so much. If anybody wants to get in touch with you, learn anything about what you're doing, are there any links or anything you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, my website is www.laurenfosterlee.com. Super basic, easy to find. And my Instagram is laurenfoster_Lee. So yeah, those pages tend to be pretty up to date with what I've got going on.
Lauren, thank you so much. Thanks for coming on and sharing all this with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, y'all. I appreciate it.
Look in the show notes to find those links that Lauren mentioned for her website and Instagram. If you're anywhere near Durham, North Carolina, and you want to check out an improv show or even take an improv class, definitely check out Meddlesome. I put a link to their website in the show notes as well. And that's not a paid promotion, by the way. I just think Meddlesome's pretty cool. If you're a leader who wants to improve your ability to delegate, if you want to improve other crucial time management skills that can help you be a more effective leader, if you want to improve your ability to manage teams of people who think and work in different ways, I would love to help you with that. I'm a certified leadership and executive coach. I have extensive experience leading high-performing teams of highly skilled and experienced professionals. I love helping leaders learn to use their time more effectively and discover more enjoyment and satisfaction in their work. Check out my website, scottmillercoaching.com, or send me an email. My address is scott@scottmillercoaching.com. If you're wondering what the dogs are doing, there's a doggy daycare place near here where we bring the dogs from time to get them some exercise and let them play with other dogs. And we took Maple there today, just Maple. We left Bug here at home because we thought maybe Bug might need a break from Maple because Maple is a year and a half old and he's a lot sometimes. And he is usually all into Bug's business. And we actually thought the Bug would enjoy a little break, but a little while ago, she was like looking around like she was looking for Maple and she was whining a little bit. So we think maybe she actually misses him today, but he'll be home soon. So I'm sure Bug will be fine. So that's all we got this week. Thanks for listening. Take care.